Welcome to the Hollywood Scholar. I'm Jed Morgan. Happy Doctor Who anniversary to everyone out there, fans of the show, and other people who are just starting to get into it. I love Doctor Who. It is one of my favorite franchises ever, most likely my favorite one, and has some of the most expansive lore that anyone can get invested in and just love and just swim around in for a very long time because there are a countless number of seasons from Classic Who through the New Who point, wherever your stopping point in New Who is, to enjoy for years and years to come. I just wanted to take a brief moment at the beginning of this video to celebrate the achievement that is Doctor Who, lasting for this long. As much as I have issues with the current era and the recent eras with Chris Chibnall and Jodie Whittaker, it is still quite impressive that this franchise has managed to last this long. For a long time, off of fan support up through the 50th anniversary. Now there might be some ulterior motives and financial backings that have lasted this long because the viewerships do not support the continued existence of the show through the Jodie Whittaker era. But you have to respect the fact that Doctor Who has managed to get this far. And I love it. That is something that a lot of people seem to be forgetting these days, is that I do these videos because I care. I believe Doctor Who is something important. It stands out among a lot of the other science fiction franchises because of the impact it had on many of us fans. For more of my thoughts on that, check out my panel stream that I did with several other people, including Adam the Renaissance Nerd and Jeremy Wormy, and as Gameland and the Common Nerd last night on my channel, titled We Love Doctor Who, a 60th anniversary celebration retrospective, where we just talked about everything we love about Doctor Who. But unfortunately, on this the anniversary, I do have a few things of negative news to briefly talk about in relation to the future of the franchise. And of course, as he always does, proving my point once again, Russell T Davies does another interview where he focuses quite heavily on diversity and representation. That seems to be his top priority going into this new era of Doctor Who. Seems like he came back just to make it more diverse and put his messages into it. And we have an article from the BBC itself, which seems to confirm that, which we'll get to in just a moment. But it is rather disappointing to see nearly every piece of news, whether they be interviews or other media, coming out about Russell T Davies' era, focusing so heavily on diversity and representation. Now, to clarify for the people who don't understand what I'm saying by that, is diversity and inclusion has never been a problem. If you come at me and say, but the old stuff had diversity, but the old stuff was always left-leaning, that's not my point. There was a priority that storytelling would come first previously, which made all the great stories that I know and love. His top priority is very clearly diversity and representation, and that's where the problem derives. He can't focus on anything else. It affects every decision made and overall diminishes the quality of the product. If you have to go into something thinking, oh, I'm not looking for the best person for the job, I'm looking for the most diverse person for the job, qualifications cease to matter and the quality of your product diminishes substantially. That's what my problem with all this is the focus above it, above things like storytelling, above quality. And for those who aren't understanding even still, I don't think I'll ever be able to make you understand. And your opinion in me is likely so set in stone that nothing could change your opinion whatsoever. But Chris Chibnall has reacted to the upcoming 60th anniversary specials and the recent change to Davros's character. And you know you've made a terrible mistake in the Doctor Who franchise once Chris Chibnall comes out in avid support of your decisions. Doctor Who Chris Chibnall praises Davros reinvention. Of course that man loves that because he's made it very clear he doesn't care about Doctor Who. He tore up everything that made Doctor Who great. As he even mentions in this article, the former showrunner speaks on the importance of ripping up the rule book. That's all he did under his run. He ripped up everything that it meant to be the Time Lord, the Doctor. He tore up everything it meant to be Doctor Who. He tore up everything that canon and history of the franchise meant. He never cared about the rule book, and so of course he praises reinvention because that was his top priority going into his era, is white man bad in every single story and destroy the past. Kill it if you have to. This man is not someone you want coming in to praise your work. So if anyone was wondering whether or not the Davros design was a good idea, this should be a clear indicator that it was not. Chris Chibnall also reacted to the fact that apparently there are Flux references in the 60th anniversary specials. Now, yes, the Flux was never rectified. The flux was never resolved. The entire universe outside of the Earth was left virtually destroyed at the end of the flux, and that was never resolved. Chris Chibnall forgot about that in the subsequent specials that he did leading up to Jodie Whittaker's regeneration. Jodie Whittaker's doctor didn't seem to care that she was partially responsible, at least for not stopping the end of the universe, and then Chris Chibnall just conveniently forgot about it. This man is a talentless hack. And so, of course, RTD had to come in if he wasn't going to retcon Chris Chibnall's entire era and fix the flux. As much as I would have definitely preferred him retcon everything, especially the Timeless Children, Russell T Davies was forced into this situation by Chris Chibnall, and I don't think Chris Chibnall should be happy that the flux was referenced in the 60th anniversary because it highlights his failure, but apparently he's very happy with the references to the flux within the 60th anniversary, going so far as to call it beautiful. The level of ignorance this man operates under is baffling to me, and I can't imagine what it's like to live in his world just blissfully unaware of every decision he's made and the impact that it's had to this degree where he doesn't realize why the flux had to be referenced, because he did not do a good job crafting, let alone resolving the story of the flux. Now, this is the article I was mentioning earlier where the BBC reviewed the first episode of the 60th anniversary specials, where they come off with their mask quite a bit. If the BBC is calling you out in Doctor Who, you know you've taken things too farther than anything in the Chris Chibnall run. BBC never came out against Chris Chibnall's decisions, as far as I'm aware, during Jodie Whittaker's run, but they are coming against it to a small degree, at least being honest about what happened rather than putting this whimsical spin on it that it's brave and stunning and beautiful. But the first thing they say, if you're indifferent to Who, this won't be the episode to convert you. And if you're altogether new to the show, you'll probably wonder what all the fuss has been about. That's admitting that the only people who are going to like this episode are the ones who stuck through the Jodie Whittaker era and enjoyed it and are looking forward to the future. That is not a good sign at all. But they even go far worse than that in the next paragraph where they say, and although the show has always been progressive, I can argue against that, at least when it comes to before the most recent Chris Chibnall run and a little bit of the end of the Stephen Moffat run. Look at the number of stories over the decades about, for example, threats to the environment. Most of those environment threats made sense, were incorporated into the story, and storytelling was the chief priority, and it wasn't necessarily from a progressive perspective. I would argue against it. The biggest one that was 100% progressive and about threats to the environment to the point where it's beating you over the head with the message was Orphan 55 in the Chris Chibnall Jodie Whittaker run. This special is preachy, and by the end, little more than a delivery system for the message. Now, some people are speculating that they're quoting Critical Drinker there. If they are, that's brilliant. Brilliant to have the Critical Drinker quoted in a BBC article about how bad Doctor Who is in its current form. But when BBC is saying, hey, this show's been political in the past, but at this point, it's little more than a delivery service for the message, you know you've taken things too far. The BBC, one of the farthest left institutions in the world that I'm aware of, at least when it comes to public media, they're calling you out for being too far left and being too message-oriented rather than storytelling-oriented. You know you've taken things way, way too far. So I can't imagine how bad the 60th anniversary special is going to be. Yes, I knew it was going to be terrible for months now. I had hope initially, but my hope swiftly drained the moment RTD started giving interviews, and then it drained near completely when he started attacking fans last year. Now, with the Davros news, I knew it was going to be terrible, knew it was going to be politically driven, but this is making it seem like it's going to be far worse than even I could have predicted it would be. If they're saying it's going to be this bad, my God, I cannot imagine what travesty we're going to get this Saturday. But after all that negative news, I want to talk briefly about two pieces of positive news, at least enjoyable news, if not necessarily positive news, to end out this video. We've got this poll from Doctor Who TV that I mentioned in a previous video, where they were asking people, what do you think about the Davros redesign? And we didn't know what the poll results were yet, but we do now. 78% of people who go to Doctor Who TV, which is primarily people who are still interested in Doctor Who, primarily people who still care about Doctor Who, and people like that. Doctor Who TV has never really had an opinion about the show or come out against decision like this. As far as I'm aware, please correct me in the comments down below if Doctor Who TV has ever done anything like this before to this degree, besides, of course, their recent poll about the change potential from seasons 14 to being renamed as season 1 for the upcoming Shudigawa first season. But 78% of people on this website, which is very important, on this website said they are against changing Davros. That is overwhelming negativity. And they even admit, wow, this is insane. We were not expecting this. Right now, RTD seems resolute in his decision, but there's always hope for fans who are against it. They don't attack fans here like they could. Everyone who I've seen defend Russell T Davies' decisions has gone all out with absolute vitriol, attacking anyone who doesn't agree with it, giving out death threats, and everything of that degree. There's very little nuanced debate when it comes to Davros' redesign. So Doctor Who TV coming out like this, even though I'm pretty sure they most likely support the decision, is something in their favor. I have to praise Doctor Who TV in this moment for the way that they responded to this situation. And finally, Tom Baker said he avoids the other doctors out of contempt. Now, this isn't big news or anything, but I wanted to slot it in at the end of this video because it's kind of a fun piece of news. Tom Baker has earned the right to be contemptuous of the other doctors, to kind of believe he's better than them, because for most Doctor Who fans, at least fans of the classic series, he's earned that right, and he's just a grumpy old man, and there's nothing wrong with that. So it is kind of fun to see him being playful with the idea of how he interacts with the other doctors through his retirement years. But that's where I wanted to end off the video, with a little bit of humorous positivity when it comes to Tom Baker. It's incredible. He's still alive. He's still kicking. He's still doing incredibly well. And I can't be happier. Every time I see Tom Baker trend on Twitter, I worry that I'm going to find out he's unfortunately passed away. But that is the Doctor Who news for today on the 60th anniversary of Doctor Who. And that's all I have for today. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Anon.